Hola a todos y bienvenidos. Continuamos con Disco Elysium. Vamos entonces a ver la nevera. Creo que podemos ir por aquí, si no me equivoco. Ahora a ver si me acuerdo exactamente dónde estaba, que esa es otra. Ay, esto es verdad.
This orange machine is dead. You slip your fingers. If you want to try again, then you need to have the pry bar in your hand.
Es verdad que necesitábamos algo más... Con esta no éramos capaces de
This
abrirlo.
orange machine is dead still. It has a hand-cranked ice cream churner
Ups.
and
Vale, pues nada. Bueno, vamos a tenernos esto ahora mismo. Vamos a investigar esto entonces.
the bear's eyes are still glowing red, watching over all the ice cream wrappers hidden inside its belly.
¿Qué opinas del nevera, Kim? Aquí caben por lo menos 2 cadáveres.
It's certainly an eccentric choice, but it is capacious and cold enough to...
But the optics on this are awful, he thinks. We need to be as silent as we can. Your visual confirms you could fit 2 more bodies in the ice bear fridge.
Shall we go and get the body then? I'll take the head, you take the feet. The stairs won't be easy, but we'll manage.
Venga, lío.
The body is heavier than you expected.
Qué fuerte.
and
No me puedo
stinkier.
creer
It
que
takes
Kim
half an
quisiera hacer
hour
esto.
to get it down to the basement. Then 10 more minutes to stuff it into the fridge. The lieutenant takes a step back to
Madre
admire
mía.
your handiwork.
Beautiful. A dead body in a nice bare fridge. This is some of the best body's work I've ever done.
¿Lo dices en serio?
No, not really. Look at that. What have we done? We stuffed a dead body in a nice bare fridge. This story does not leave this room.
Lo hemos hecho lo mejor posible con los medios a nuestro alcance.
Did we though? Okay, maybe we did. At least we've stopped the body from decomposing further. Now you can conduct another inspection under controlled circumstances.
Inside the icy realm of the ice bear fridge, the corpse stands slumped, waiting.
Dime algo.
Shoot, Looney Rooney.
En la autopsia dijiste que aguantabas antiguos misterios.
Oh yes, Cobo me Lobo, in the gift horse's mouth. Tracts and wakes and waterways. Ancient materials buried.
Sí, pero ¿dónde, colega?
Just a small gulp away. My beloved Cobo. A small gulp away.
¿Te gusta la nevera?
I like it a lot, brother. This really is your finest hour. You're a genius, a regular Copperlangelo. Come back later, Coppo. Amuse yourself
Busca la
with my
boca.
frank manners and my memento mori features. If
Hey.
possible. Also, see me in your dreams.
Oye, hemos mejorado aquí, ¿eh? Pero aún así... Es que no sé si... A ver, espera, voy a grabar. No sé si tengo algo que me mejore percepción. Teatralidad, espíritu de cosa, física... Electroquímica, visión espacial... Manipulación... reacción... Nada. Y no tengo nada que me quite... No tengo nada que me dé percepción. Qué pena, ¿no? Y tampoco tengo nada que me quite percepción. Bueno. No sé, no sé. Podría intentarlo. ¿Puedo hablar con Kim? ¿Quieres preguntarle algo?
Yes?
¿Vamos
What
a
do you
hablar del
want to know?
caso?
You mean like a brief? 3 days ago, during
Esto
that
es lo
time,
mismo.
the victim had...
Ya
Okay
es
then.
suficiente.
Was there anything else you wanted to know? No. The deceased is a security guard for a corporation involved in a labor dispute. It doesn't take a DeLorean polymath to put the pieces together. I just don't see the case getting more mysterious than that. As you know, there was considerable interest in this case at my station, but probably not for the reasons you have in mind. Good point. Martinez is famed for its occult sex murder rites. We'll get on it immediately.
The weary tone is the surest indicator that the lieutenant is being sarcastic.
Igual, ¿en serio?
No, not really. Was there...
It can still be he's
Ay,
basically
en fin.
challenging you to sex it up with some lurid...
Good.
Vale, pues nada. Vamos a probarlo, venga. A ver si hay suerte.
The bear's eyes are still glowing red. It's got your arms reach out and your eyes
Toma.
close, as if by their own volition. It's dark all around. You feel cold, slippery flesh. First with your fingertips, it's right under the palm of your hand.
¿Qué es esto?
His face, his cheeks, his nose, his fat, swollen lips. Like a rubber spider, your gloved hand crawls on his features. Everything is silent, all around.
¿Meterle los dedos en la boca? ¿Va a encontrar
The
algo?
oral cavity is cold and moist. A ball-like tongue attaches itself to the base of the mouth, lolling around like a scallop. You're on the right track.
Abrir los ojos y mirar.
A vision of black and dark red death, pried open by your hands and studded with teeth. Looks like he's laughing. Death fumes rising from his throat. And there, in the back of his mouth, above the bell of the uvula, right in the soft palate, you see a hole, barely visible to the human eye. It is swollen shut, almost vanished. No larger than 0.4 centimeters in radius, the edges appear dark. An abrasion collar. This is what we're after.
Decir, toma ya.
Keep going.
Tocarlo con el dedo
A
suavemente.
black trickle of liquid runs into his throat from the wound. Your index fits right in there. A tight tunnel of flesh opens up. Tissue damage. Wide enough for 2 fingers. As you push both in, you reach through his mouth, right into his
Esto
brain
es muy
stem.
asqueroso, pero ¿por qué no hay un forense que haga esto, por favor? Qué asco. Palpar primero alrededor.
The basal ganglia feels clumpy. What entered here has torn apart his reptilian complex. This man will never sleep again, never wake. Your yellow fingers slide into the remains of the limbic system. There is no resistance. It's gelatinous. The slug-like structures are damaged too. The tearing extends deep into both hemispheres. The ululations of the limbic system have ended. All is quiet.
Hay una cavidad justo en medio de los hemisferios.
The lieutenant answers with the sound of his pen on paper. Your fingers are all the way in now, reaching toward the inside of his skull. The cavity goes further, but the entry wound isn't wide enough for the rest of your hand to follow. Your fingers reach toward his skull. His cerebral cortex feels like jelly, cold jelly. Strange fluid streams down your wrist as you push deeper until you feel it on the tip of your finger. Ice cold serrated metal.
Wow.
Its edges cut right through the latex and into your finger.
Noto un objeto sólido justo debajo del cráneo.
Can you get to it?
Inspeccionar el cráneo primero.
There's a tiny crack, a protrusion in the cranium, right in the back of his head. Your finger must be pointing straight at it, from the inside. The object that is in there stops just short of the skull, in the encephalus, knocking this tiny fracture into the cranium.
We have the makings of a very small exit wound here.
Bueno, malo será, ¿no? Uf, menos mal. Menos mal.
You pick the object between your index and middle finger. It feels sharp, like metal. With your face twisting from pain and concentration, all you need to do is just...
Sacar los dedos lentamente.
The inside of the head feels cold and smooth, like a glove. Sweat dripping down your brow. Careful not to lose the prize between your fingers. With a plop, your hand emerges from the mouth. The garden glove is covered in blood right up to the wrist. Between your fingers, a small flower, a blossom made of lead.
A bullet.
El teniente coloca una pequeña bolsa etiquetada como prueba debajo de ella. ¿Soltarla en la bolsa? Ahí vamos.
The bullet falls in the bag, leaving a smattering of blood on the plastic. He raises the bag under his eyes and says,
A non-caliber. Rifled. Some kind of brittle alloy. Fractured on impact.
¿Me la das?
Of course. You deserve it. We need to add an item to the injury list. Injury number 4. Oval entry wound with an abrasion color. Soft palate, back of mouth. High velocity. Temporary cavity in brain tissue. Small exit wound on the occiput. How does that sound?
Suena correcto.
Opinion, fatal injury.
Y tan mortal.
And one last thing. We should amend injury number 3. Ligament mark. New opinion, non-fatal. Post-mortem. Treatment.
He's proposing the bullet was the real cause of death, and the hanging an attempt to conceal this fact.
¿Manipulación?
Treatment, officer, is an attempt to manipulate the body after death, to hide the real cause with a false cause. In this case, this injury here.
La marca de ligadura, el hueso tiroides fracturado, manipularon el cadáver.
Yes, and the belt around his neck, the hanging, even dragging him to the yard. All of it was done after this man was already dead.
Concuerdo.
I have had my doubts since you showed me the tracks. Why did they carry him over? Why not march him, I thought. There was no satisfying explanation. There have been other signs too. Small details. Everything is too neatly designed for us to assign probable cause here, as we did, full-heartedly. Well, no more.
We almost fell for it, he thinks. Almost. There is, of course, the very real possibility he was both shot and hanged.
A lo mejor le dispararon mientras colgaba.
To put him out of his misery? It's possible, but it doesn't explain all the other dubious things here. Lack of struggle, primarily. I may be intellectually sloppy, but I prefer one theory at a time. And this just smacks of treatment to me.
¿Quién puede hacer esto?
That's for us to find out. But this, it will make finding them just a little easier.
¿Por qué lo hicieron?
To hide something. The real killer? The real motivation? What really happened here?
Creo que necesito lavarme.
Oh, you really, really do. I am glad to hear you say that. Your room in the Whirling in Rags should come with a bathroom. Be sure to make use of it in the evening.
Tal vez la bala tenga más respuestas.
Yes, we should take a closer look at it. I am certain it has more to tell us.
This little thing could reveal much about the weapon that shot it.
¿Y ahora qué?
We bag the corpse and carry him to the holding pen of my kinema. I can transport him to processing myself, but I will be gone for the rest of the day.
¿No estarás? ¿Y qué hago yo mientras tanto?
Work on the case. Tend to personal matters. Try not to do anything too dangerous. An officer needs backup in a neighborhood like this. I'll leave that choice to you. And one more thing. Great work, detective.
Vamos a embolsarlo, Kim. Llévatelo.
All right.
Saca una bolsa para cadáveres negra y comienza a cubrir el rostro del difunto.
There go those beautiful enamel boots. You will never own the full set now. May they rest in
Qué
processing.
pesados con las botas, que no quiero las botas.
I will need a little help carrying him. You take the hands, I'll take the legs.
Vale, pues nada, nos hemos quedado aquí solos. Vaya hombre. Vamos a ver, vamos a ver. Esto se me ha quitado, no sé por qué. No. Anda, mira, tengo aquí este libro, no sé dónde lo he cogido. A ver.
The front of this quarterly journal features a large satirical portrait of the late King Friesel. From the sides of his head, a pair of white antlers spread to the corners of the cover.
¿Friesen? ¿Por qué?
Because Friesel was incompetent, foolish, and cruel.
Okay.
In short, the embodiment of everything the communards wished to overthrow. It's satire, you see.
Ojearla a ver si de algo llama tu atención.
To your disappointment, there aren't any full-color pictures to direct your attention. Just column after column of closely set text, interrupted occasionally by little doodles in black
Oye, está
and
lloviendo.
white. After rifling the pages with your thumb several times, you return to the table of contents. The magazine is divided into several sections. International developments, Kunst und Kultur, and local concerns. Just inside the cover, there's also an editor's note.
¿Qué significa Kunst und Kultur?
It takes a moment, but gradually it dawns on you that Kunst und Kultur must mean arts and culture.
El por qué decidieron denominar esta sección en Walder escapa a tu comprensión.
It evokes a sense of recognition and fellowship among those privileged enough to understand. As you leaf through this section, you come across several reviews of recent radio plays, as well as a brief artist spotlight featuring a local artist identified only as CS. The main feature, though, is a long essay titled Tip Top Tournée, a critical Mazovian perspective. The Tip Top Tournée is an inter-isolari racing series, mostly known for its high speeds, ludicrous sponsorship deals, and high death toll. In Revachol, it's held quadrennially on the prestigious Zero Carousel racing circuit.
¿Leer el perfil de CC?
This so-called artist spotlight is really just a brief Q&A, made all the briefer by the subject's evident hostility to her interviewer.
Bien, veamos qué tienen que decir estos comunistas sobre TikTok.
You think you're settling in for a relaxing recap of the most recent season, maybe sprinkled with some nice anecdotes about a few of the more colorful drivers. Instead, you find yourself skimming a 10,000
Wow.
word feature about all the politically problematic aspects of Tip Top Tournée.
Espera, ¿qué tiene de malo el TikTok?
Where to even start? For one, there's the crass commercialism of its sponsorships, and then there's the practically criminal emphasis
Okay.
on deadly motor crashes. So, all of it, basically.
Señor Freno, ¿quién escribió esto?
Oddly enough, this article has 2 bylines, Nasteb Encolada Bernal and Exilus Buka. There's no way those are real names.
Espera, ¿por qué no iban a hacerlo?
Have you ever met anyone named Exilus? Come on, they're plainly pseudonyms.
¿Qué tienen de malo los patrocinios?
Under capitalism, the article says, every pursuit has its price. Every pleasure, even one as elemental as the joy of racing others around a track, is reduced to an advertising opportunity. Thus, the so-called tournée becomes a competition between increasingly meaningless brand signifiers. Your discount laundry detergent racing against a pack of Astra cigarettes, or even a frita.
Sí, pero luego ves cómo se la pegan.
And that precisely is what's problematic about it. Were it not for the promise of random, spectacular violence, audiences would quickly lose interest. At the end of the day, it's the destruction of these 750,000 real races that you're really watching for.
Ah, no, estoy seguro que me gusta por la competición.
Sure, you think that, but subconsciously, it's the visions of brand names being engulfed in flames that you crave.
Supongo que nunca le he dado muchas vueltas.
That's because you haven't been reading critically. But don't worry. The whole point of these sorts of articles is to let someone else read critically for you. You flip back to the front of the magazine.
Bueno, vamos
The
a guardar
table-
la revista. Y vamos a ver la bala. Expandida por el impacto, ahora parece más bien un elegante botón de chaqueta que una herramienta mortal capaz de perforar la piel, carne y hueso.
The bullet is safely sealed away in a plastic bag bearing the RCM stamp. Kim has filled out the label on the bag with the item number, case number, and date and location the bullet was found. Beside his orderly handwriting, the bullet looks especially sad, like a tiny, shriveled head of cauliflower.
¿Qué hago contigo, bala?
The squished little thing has no idea. I know. You should find the gun that shot this bullet.
Es mi amiga, voy a empezar a hablar con ella, madre mía. Encuentra el arma que la disparó.
That sounds like something a police detective would do. First, you should learn all you can about this little guy. Then find the gun that shot it and the person that gun belongs to. He used it to kill your victim. Neato.
Palpa la bala a través de la bolsa.
The squashed bullet has some sharp edges where the jacket has split open. It feels cold, even through the bag. You wouldn't ordinarily have cause to handle jacketed bullets. The citizens' militia uses cast bullets only. Little pebbles of metal loaded from the muzzle, usually in a cartridge.
Examinar la bala.
The jacket of the bullet is made of a yellowish metal. It has blossomed out to reveal a dark grey core. The base of the bullet is close to 5 millimeters in diameter.
Mira el refuerzo.
You can just about make out a few striations near the base of the bullet. Little hairlines, linear. It feels standard.
¿Y el núcleo?
It's quite destroyed. Some of the fragments are still lodged in the wound.
Estoy pensando que no sé si debería haber hecho esto cuando esté aquí, porque a lo mejor me hice algo él.
Far away, Lieutenant Kitsuragi is flipping through stations in his Kanima. He is not here examining the bullet with you. He should be.
Vale,
He would
¿ves?
find this very intriguing. Mention it to him later when he's here.
Lo sabía. I knew it. Mira, ya que no está aquí, a lo mejor puedo echar un vistazo por aquí y ver si puedo repetir algo de esto de aquí. Espejo, silen. ¿Qué es esta puerta? No me doy cuenta que es esta puerta, la verdad. Barra de pesas. El muro del patio. Tengo varios aquí con Joyce. Mira, voy a hablar con Joyce, ahora que lo veo, porque a Kitsuragi no le suele gustar que hable con ella. Y mira, ya que estoy aquí voy a ir a Frit un momento. Antes de nada, quiero saber dónde comprar cosas para curarme, porque dentro de nada me quedo ahí... Me quedo ahí frito. Vamos a vender las botellas.
The tear machine stands. Your bottles clunk into the machine.
Solo
and
un real, madre mía.
a small cabinet on the wall is filled with various medicine bottles. nasal sprays, and
Pues
blister
unos
packs.
salud,
They
esto
all
es la
bear the
salud,
Saint-Baptiste
una
Pharmaceutics
moral, nuestra
logo.
moral. Me voy a llevar
Okay,
una.
here.
Venga. Más que nada para tener ahí algo de margen. Tengo que ver qué vender. Creo que tenía unas postales por ahí que cogí que yo creo que no sirven para nada. Porque es que voy a tener que pagar la habitación hoy. Y ya vamos mal de dinero. Tengo aquí unas postales. Ah, mira, esta a lo mejor se la podía dar al señor, ¿no? Un par de postales tengo. No lo del teniente. Bueno, eso. Hablar con Joyce. Eso. Tenemos que encontrar también al marito de esta, que saber dónde está. También podemos cruzar el puente. Sí, hay varias cosas. Uy, ¿y esto? Ahí hay algo. ¡Ostras! 2 reales. ¡Qué bueno! Dinerito bueno.
You're back. Good. What can I help you with? Not an umbrella, I hope. I don't need one myself, you see.
Me vendría bien un abrigo similar. La lluvia me está calando.
Sadly, I need this one myself. It's hydrophobic, repels water, almost magically. The company makes them for offshore platform personnel. Very sturdy. What I can do for you is answer some questions. Nothing like talking to pass a rainy day.
Vale.
More lessons in basic reality? My favorite part of the day. Go ahead, ask me anything.
Vamos a probar esto, ¿no?
What is all of this? The scent, the sound, the air.
¿Qué mundo es este?
What world? The only one, I suppose. The world of matter. And its pale antipode.
The camera of her mind glides over the surface of the water.
¿Qué ve?
Great bodies of water. Forest-covered surfaces. Clusters of light where the cities lie. You've seen the montage. We all have. This world is enough. There is a term of endearment they coined for it, in the DeLorean century, when humanity was high on this world, discovering more and more of it, these archipelagos included.
¿Qué término?
Elysium.
Elysium. El mundo necesita un término afectuoso.
It does. There are those who would call it hell.
¿Qué es el infierno?
A term of hatred that originates, like many such things, with the Mesk petro-fascists.
Mucho me temo que todavía no pillo el concepto general.
Oh, you want a picture of the world? There is no complete set yet, dear. They're having some trouble reaching orbit.
Disculpe.
Great things are difficult to achieve. For now, we're viewing the world from the inside, sideways.
Desde dentro y de lado. ¿Qué forma tiene este mundo entonces?
We used to think it was a sphere, but that is beginning to look less and less likely by the day. You wouldn't know it from the tabloids, but the ORG nations have been launching weather balloons into the lower ionosphere since the 30s.
ORG, Occident Revichol-Grad.
There's a steadily increasing trickle of images. Between the big three scientific contributors, they're piecing together a dark grey corona.
¿Una corona gris oscura?
Yes. Pale covers 72% of the surface. There are grey flares and prominences, even arcs above entire isolas. The images are blurry, but if there was a sphere in there, it certainly looks like it fractured a long time ago.
¿La palidez? ¿A qué se refiere con lo de la corona?
They say there is a rarefied envelope of matter surrounding the darkened disk of our planet. That is, if we are still living on a planet. Or, to speak more plainly, imagine vast swathes of land disrupted by nothingness. I am sorry, dear. It must sound quite terrifying through the acute encephalopathy. Even scientific positivism isn't entirely convinced about what we're dealing with here. But this is one of the greatest questions of our time. Maybe when they get the complete set together, it will jolt us out of our rut, bring us together, however naive it may sound.
Me da a mí que una corona fracturada no va a unir a nadie.
You have misimagined it. I don't have the power to convey to you the effect and geometry of the images that depict our world from below low orbit. It's like the crowning of the world. It's insane. Very disco. You'd love it.
Bueno, si dice que es disco...
See? Everyone finds something worth holding on to in this world, however wasted its opportunities.
Suddenly, you're conscious of yourself standing there, on whatever this all is. Your arms hang down by your sides.
¿Qué es la palidez?
The pale is not, technically speaking, part of reality. It is the opposite of reality.
Vale, pero ¿qué es? Una definición.
Okay. The pale is the most dominant geological feature of the world, detective. The separative tissue between the islas. It is the inter-islary mass.
Espera, ¿qué es una isla?
Isla is a Messinian word for a continent of matter, enveloped on all sides by the pale. Also, isolation, or landmass. We used to believe there was only one. In the last 4 centuries, we have discovered 7. Mundi, Seol, Samara, Ilmara, Grad, Katla, and this, Insulinde.
Insulindia es...
An oceanic isla. It comprises mostly of water. Muindi is the largest, Katla the coldest, Insulinde the bluest. What can I say? Each is perishing and dear.
Bien, ¿cómo es la palidez?
Achromatic, odorless, featureless. The pale is the enemy of matter and life. It is not like any other, or anything in the world. It is the transition state of being into nothingness.
¿Está aquí?
No, detective. We're safe. It begins there, 6,000 kilometers to the north, and even more to the south, east, and west. You are in the middle of the isla.
As your gaze instinctively turns north, a small black pit opens up in your stomach.
A 6.000 kilómetros desde el fin del mundo.
Yes. That is enough. Many cities are built much closer.
¿Y ahí?
An uproar of matter, darling. Rising into the pale. Rolling. Evaporating even. A great vision. The area of transition between the world and the pale is called porch collapse. Imagine a grey coronal mist, cold vapour marked by spores of an opportunistic microorganism, a mould that's adapted to grow at the edge of the unrest. It's the most disco thing you will ever see.
¿Cuáles son sus cualidades físicas?
It's difficult to describe, or even measure. Something whose fundamental property is the suspension of properties. Physical, epistemological, linguistic. The further into pale you travel, the steeper the degree of suspension, right down to the mathematical. Numbers stop working. No one has yet passed the number barrier. It may be impossible.
Si estamos rodeados de palidez, ¿cómo se va de isla a isla?
Oh, it is so difficult for us.
A squall of birds. Hardware operating in the harbour. Firm. Self-evident.
It is possible to force dimensions on the Pale. In modern times, we can even compress its latitude, bouncing radio waves from one end to the other, shortening the path. But it is still hard for humans to navigate the Pale without getting lost, or having our minds damaged.
La palidez daña la mente.
Extensively.
¿Cómo?
Some say the damage stems from extreme sensory deprivation. Others argue that Pale somehow consists of past information that's degrading, that it's rarefied past, not rarefied matter. They call it the blend over of the self. The Pale does not only suspend the laws of physics, but also the laws of psychology, maybe history even. The human mind becomes over-radiated by past.
Who says and who argues?
¿Quién lo dice? ¿Quién lo discute?
The logical positivists say, the dialectical materialists argue.
¿Cómo es ese exceso de radiación?
It feels terrible. Absolutely terrible. International standards strictly limit civilian travellers to 6 days of Pale exposure per year.
It's more for her. Way more.
¿Usted no es un pasajero civil?
No nameless detective of the citizens' militia. I am a member of the entreprenetic business class. I'm cleared and trained for 22 days of Pale transit annually.
Perhaps that explains her strange pining after the revolution. Some degraded early memories. Someone else you've met may have been exposed as well. The strange grey-haired woman in her lorry.
¿Los camioneros cruzan la palidez?
Yes, carried in the hulls of airships. It's a horrific job. Automation will abolish it soon.
You should ask the Pale driver about this. See what she says. That poor woman must have stories to tell, like you wouldn't imagine.
¿Usted está sobreirradiada?
Up to my gills, officer.
¿Qué significa entroponético?
Extensively. Some say the damage. They call it the blend.
Who says and who argues?
It feels.
It's more for her. Way more.
No.
Perhaps that someone else you've met may have been. She's over-radiated. And
Entreprenetics
es la segunda vez que me
is the
equivoco de
scientific
número.
study of the Pale, or a recent iteration of it by way of grad. The study of the Pale reaches back 6,000 years. The Pericarnassians called it the Western Plain.
they had not travelled the entire circumference of the Pericarnassian Super E-Solar. It was not merely in the west, it was everywhere, even then, surrounding them.
¿La cruzaron? ¿Cruzaron la llanura occidental?
There are signs of pretermodern crossings. Successful navigation of the Pale relies not just on technical know-how, but intensive psychological preparation. Some of these tactics have been known for thousands of years.
Entonces, ¿qué ha cambiado en la antroponética?
Nothing. We remain powerless before the Pale. The only real advance in Pale transit is the speed with which an aerostatic craft can pierce it. Less exposure leads to less effects later.
¿Embarcaciones aerostáticas?
Hybrid airships, detective. Conventional rotors or jet engines no longer add velocity after the point of reference for motion is suspended, once you've crossed from near Pale to far Pale. In essence, we throw them in and they come out the other end, if we throw them precisely.
¿Y si no se da el caso?
Then they don't.
Ok.
Gone, like a skipping stone beneath the surface.
¿Cuánta palidez hay comparada con el terreno material?
The Pale outweighs reality 2 to 1. There is more Pale than there is matter, and the ratio is slipping.
¿Decayendo cómo? ¿En nuestra contra o...?
What do you think, detective?
¿Se están cogiendo?
Oh no, detective. It's not. One of the few measurable effects of the Pale is that it is expanding at an unknown rate. An intuitive conclusion of that development is that one day the Pale will cover everything. But this sort of talk is mostly left to extremists.
¿Cubrirlo todo? No puede ser. ¿A dónde iríamos?
Most people, and indeed most private and government sector organizations, entire civilizations and religions even, find handy ways to ignore or downplay that knowledge. I suggest you do the same.
Off we go. You see the hanged man's mouth open.
Nos adentramos en el salvaje pálido de más allá.
One and all. They say Pale is death, but for the universe.
Why should we just leave, and the world get left behind?
Volvamos a la realidad.
Yes, sweet reality. But before we do, tell me, Detective, is this the first time you're hearing this? Do you really not remember anything?
Me estoy haciendo una idea de quién soy, pero no sabía nada de esto.
Beyond curious. Tell me, what do you think of the Pale?
Es muy disco. Sus ojos se tensan, las patas de gallo surgen de ellos. Te observa, tus ojos están inyectados en sangre y tienes la cara hinchada.
You really didn't know. This does not spell good for the investigation, Detective. If you don't know even this, then...
Esta investigación será mi obra maestra, aquello por lo que me recordarán, lo prometo.
I hope so. I truly do. If I may suggest, hold on to your colleague, Kitsuragi. I ran a check on him and he is very competent. In the meanwhile...
Some of that assurance is meant for herself, as much as it's meant for you. She must have a lot on the line here.
You have me. I will assist you in any way I can, even if we have to do it one basic term at a time.
Vale, vamos a decirle esto.
6 kilometers southwest, in the Valley of Dogs, Junior Officer Chad Tilbrook takes aim at a rabid black dog licking its wounds in the grass. To his left, his partner, Emil Mullins, whispers, "You heard what happened to Tequila Sunset in Martinez?" "Yes, he lost his mind," Tilbrook answers, fingers on the trigger. "Don't worry, Emil." He pulls it out slowly. Slowly now. He'll find it again. We always do.
¿Quién soy yo?
You? You're an officer of the RCM.
¿La milicia ciudadana de Guayol?
Preciso mundo.
Bien, ¿qué es la milicia ciudadana de Revachol?
Nothing more nor less than the de facto law enforcement body of post-revolutionary Revachol, Detective.
¿Ha dicho de facto?
Yes, that means not de jure. The RCM acts in what is poetically called the twilight of international law, both at the behest of the coalition government and to its chagrin.
¿Qué se refiere?
The RCM's responsibilities are defined by the Emergency, Wayfarer and Aliments Acts, 3 pieces of legislation keeping the city in a, let's be honest, laissez-faire stasis to the benefit of foreign capital.
Así que básicamente soy de los buenos.
There's nothing basic about your role, Detective. It's true that the RCM keeps everything the way our seemingly permanent provisional rulers like it. Yet, on the other hand, I know these people. I deal with them daily. Let me tell you, dear, they are not fans of you.
¿Por qué?
The post-revolutionary decade was a disaster for the coalition government. Revachol in the 20s was hell, especially on the west side of the river. Gang warfare, a botched privatization scheme, a nuclear pile meltdown. They called it the international zone because no nation wanted to claim responsibility. The RCM restored peace where the coalition failed, A true blue citizens' initiative. They will never forgive you. So permit me to conclude with this. Who you are to me is the police, the only legitimate law enforcement authority in Revachol.
Gracias, señora.
And if those authorities drink so hard they need help recalling the basic terms of reality, well, I'm here to help. Nothing more nor less than the... Yes, that means not de jure. Permit me to conclude. And if those authorities drink so... Glad to have been of assistance. The little that I know.
Vale, puedo decirle lo de Brad, pero prefiero que esté Kim aquí por si dice algo. Es que tampoco quiero hacer mucha cosa, porque... ¿Tú me dices algo nuevo, Cindy? Ahí hay una ventana.
Hello again, officers. Have you come to admire my mural?
¿Y esto? Ostras. Desde aquí no lo veo. A ver. ¿Y desde aquí? Las cortinas se mueven ligeramente. ¿Hay alguien observando? ¿Y cómo entro ahí? No tengo ni idea de qué es ese... ¿Es uno de estos apartamentos de aquí? El musgo cubre los azulejos del baño. Es musgo de verdad. Wow. Ah, mira, magnesio y alcohol comodoro rojo. Vale. Había entrado ahí. Qué raro. Curioso. Vale, aquí no hay nada. Zapatos. Ah, no, es dinero. Esto ya lo he visto. Nada, cierra. Mira, han cambiado cosas. ¡Hola! ¿Cuánto dinero? Me lo llevo. ¿Esta la puedo abrir? ¿Se habrá ido ya la...? Sí, la que estaba aquí intentando arreglar la habitación. Aquí no hay nada. Aquí tampoco puedo entrar. A ver, aquí. Aquí tienen... Esto no estaba antes. Libro 16 días del abril más frío. Vale. ¿Qué pasa aquí?
What happened here?
No puedes embarcar un apartamento con un agujero en la pared.
It will still be accessible through the apartment next to it. That one didn't have a door. Sadly, nothing of great value remains here.
Siempre queda alguna cosilla en la nevera.
Indeed.
¿Ya está? No hay nada en la nevera. No sé. Esto es una herramienta. ¿What? ¿Me la pongo en la mano y voy dándole traguitos o cómo? ¿Hay algo en la nevera? No hay nada, ¿no? No. Vale. Bueno, pues nada. A ver, ¿no me dice algo nuevo la señora?
Give me a moment.
Vale. Esta es la salida. Vamos a ir aquí arriba. Quiero ver si puedo ver algo en la ventana esa. Nada, desde aquí no puedo ver nada. Yo creo. Vamos. Sería cuestión de ir hacia allí, en el otro lado. Supongo que no será esta puerta. Un centenar de pequeños pies correteando bajo la rejilla. Las ratas de la ciudad. Qué asco, ¿no? Aquí no hay nada más, esto ya lo habíamos visto. Nada nuevo por aquí, vale. Bueno, pues nada, yo creo que ya lo vamos a dejar aquí por hoy, que si no se me va a hacer muy largo el episodio. Y nada, en el siguiente capítulo pues seguiremos viendo a ver qué cositas podemos hacer. La verdad es que no quiero hacer demasiado sin que esté Kima aquí, porque... no sé, por si me pierdo algo, por ejemplo, como lo de la bala de antes. Pero bueno, habrá que ir haciendo tiempo, supongo que volverá mañana. No sé si lo pone aquí, a ver. Cuenta el arma... No sé si tengo alguna misión aquí. Creo que no. Vale, pues nada, lo dicho, aquí la dejamos por hoy. Como siempre os digo, si os está gustando la serie, por favor dejad un like al vídeo, no olvidéis suscribiros y también activar la campanita para que os avise siempre que subamos un vídeo nuevo. Y nada, nos vemos muy pronto en el próximo. Muchas gracias.